I don't care what that paper says, you are encroaching on community property and I demand you stop immediately.
We confirmed the boundaries before breaking ground.
At 4:27 a.m. on May 3, 2024, I jolted awake to floodlights blasting my bedroom wall and the screech of metal posts being hammered into the ground. Cold air poured in through my cracked window, and the whole street smelled like wet asphalt and burned coffee from some guy's thermos. I stumbled outside in socks and saw two maintenance trucks parked across my driveway, hazards flashing like a crime scene. A fresh orange fence was going up around the little line of sidewalk trees I planted 3 years ago. My trees. The ones that shade my front room so my AC doesn't cry all summer. A woman in a puffy vest stood there with a clipboard like she was directing a movie set. Karen from the HOA board. She didn't even blink when I asked what was happening. She just pointed and said, HOA Improvement Project. You can't interfere. I stepped closer and saw a stapled sign already hanging on the fence, common area access only. I actually laughed, because it was so bold it felt fake. Then she hit me with the sentence that made my stomach drop. Those trees are not yours. They're common area. You planted them illegally. That's when I realized this wasn't about trees. It was about power. In my head I heard my own voice say the title like a warning. HOA fenced my sidewalk trees and called them common area, then I pulled the deed. That's the whole fight in one breath. She waved a paper at me like it was a magic spell and told me the board approved it at 9 p.m. the night before. No notice. No vote I knew about. Just a fence, right now, stealing my shade and my curb appeal before breakfast. Later that morning, I tried to be normal about it. I called the HOA office. Straight to voicemail. I emailed the board with photos and asked for the rule they were citing. No reply. I walked next door to Mr. Diaz, the kind guy who always waters his roses at dusk, and asked if he knew anything. He looked over his shoulder like Karen might be hiding in a shrub. He whispered, "She's been going house to house. People are scared to fight her." Another neighbor texted me, "Don't poke the bear, man." She called code enforcement on the Johnsons for a bird feeder. At 6:10 p.m., Karen showed up at my door with two more board members behind her like backup dancers. She smiled and said, "Just sign this acknowledgement and we'll let it go." The paper said I surrendered landscaping to the HOA. I said no. Her smile turned sharp. Fine. Enjoy the consequences. That night I sat at my kitchen table, staring at that fence like it was laughing at me. I wasn't going to cut it, kick it, or do anything stupid. I promised myself I'd use proper channels only, because I like my clean record and I like sleeping at night. So I started building a case like a boring adult with a grudge. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. I printed the HOA bylaws. I pulled every notice they'd ever sent me, even the petty ones. Then I made it simple for my own brain. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. That was the night a patrol car rolled up because someone said a suspicious male was prowling my yard. It was me. Taking trash out. Timeline item 2 April 22 at 7:18 p.m. unauthorized vegetation warning. Timeline item 3 May 3 at 4:27 a.m. fence installation. The pattern wasn't random. It was a campaign. The next day, I went to the county records office like I was going to the dentist. I asked for my plat map, lot lines, and any easements near my sidewalk. The clerk didn't blink. He slid a stack across the counter like this happens all the time. When the public records file landed with 63 pages, I felt my pulse jump. There it was in black and white. My property line ran all the way to the sidewalk edge, including the strip where my trees sat. Not common area. Not HOA land. Mine. I also found the HOA had no recorded easement for that section, and any common area claim would need documented authority. I paid for certified copies, then booked a licensed surveyor for the next week. It cost $1,200, and it stung, but I wanted this to end with stamps and signatures, not vibes. On May 10th at 6:30 p.m., the HOA held their monthly meeting in the clubhouse, and Karen strutted in like she owned the air. I walked in with my binder, my certified records, and the surveyor's preliminary stakes already placed outside earlier that afternoon. A couple neighbors followed me in, phones half raised, pretending they were just checking messages. Karen started with her usual speech about community standards and shared spaces, and then she looked right at me and said, "Some residents think rules don't apply to them." I stood up and kept my voice calm. I said, "I brought proof the trees are on my deeded property." She waved her hand. "Sit down. You're wasting everyone's time." So I handed copies to each board member and asked them to read the lot description out loud. The room went quiet except for the hum of the soda machine. One board guy cleared his throat and muttered, "It says the boundary includes the sidewalk strip." Karen's face went tight. She tried to pivot and said, "Even if it's yours, we can manage it for safety." That's when I slid out my timeline and the police report number from April 5th, and I said the simple part out loud: patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. A few people actually snorted, and someone in the back whispered, "Oh." Karen tried to stand and end the meeting, but the timing was perfect because the city inspector walked in right then. Not because I called them that minute, but because I had filed a lawful encroachment complaint the day before, with photos showing the fence blocked sidewalk access and had no permit tag. The inspector asked who approved the installation. Karen pointed at me like I forced her to do it. He didn't care. He stepped outside, checked the stakes, measured, and came back in with a clipboard that looked way scarier than hers. He said the fence was an unpermitted obstruction on a public walkway edge and had to come down within 24 hours, or fines would start. People started filming for real now. One neighbor whispered, "This is going online." Another said, "Finally." Karen's voice went squeaky. "But it's HOA property." The inspector said, "Your own documents say it isn't." Then he asked her for the permit number. She didn't have one. Her cheeks went bright red, and the whole room felt like it was holding its breath while she shrank. By noon on May 11th, the fence was gone. Not because Karen had a change of heart, but because the inspector came back and the HOA's landscaping crew didn't want city fines. The HOA sent me a letter later claiming it was a miscommunication, which is a funny word for tried to steal your land before dawn. The board held an emergency vote, and Karen stepped down 2 weeks later. She still walks past my house sometimes, fast, staring at her phone like the sidewalk might bite her. The best part wasn't her humiliation, though it was satisfying. It was the way my neighbors started smiling again. Mr. Diaz brought me a little bag of lemons and said, "Thanks for standing up." The Johnsons put their bird feeder back out. And on warm evenings, my trees throw shade over the sidewalk like nothing ever happened, except now everyone knows exactly where the line is. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.